Hey everybody, Bryan here on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. It eclipsed 70 degrees today. Feels very nice after a very shaky week of 50-degree weather here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Today I'm walking around Eagle Marsh, which is located in the southwest side of the greater Fort Wayne area. Beautiful place. I come here from time to time to just walk it through. Wrangle with some thoughts, think about things, and just have a nice time out in nature. The path I'm taking today goes around the actual wetlands themselves. I don't normally do that. Usually I go alongside and then I go into a residential area and then turn around afterwards. But today, this is going to be kind of a long form video, so I'm going to need a little bit of time to get this through. So what you're watching is the first of what I feel should be many videos in a series covering my time in education. I'm currently a special ed assistant for a elementary school here in town, doing it I guess you might say temporarily, but I've done this a few years now. I'm working on my master's degree in school psychology, so I'm doing this to get a little more experience in schools with special ed and kind of padding the resume, you might say. It's going to take me some time to get through this degree. My bachelor's is also in psychology, so I've got a good background in what I do. I just need a little extra time to get the big stuff done. So I guess the point of these videos, as I struggle with the wind here, there's some people coming up, I'll get around them. So anyways, by the way, that's going to be probably a frequent happening throughout these videos. Though I want to be in more of an isolated area to kind of show you the landscape or wherever I'm at the time, I'm going to come across people. I don't necessarily want to, but I will. And also for today, it's very windy, as you might be able to tell from the foliage around me. So if that becomes a problem for the speakers here, my apologies. You should still be able to hear me quite well. I have a secondary channel that I've done other videos for where I do more or less the same thing and just under a different topic. But for this series that you are encountering right now, it's all about school, specifically elementary school, and my time with it. I've amassed a lot of stories, a lot of things that have occurred, much of which I might not be able to get into for the sake of privacy and anonymity in a way. So I'll talk in the sense of generalities, let's put it that way. No specific names, nothing like that. If I happen to use a name, it's just going to be a kind of a placeholder for the real person. Ooh. It's very windy today. Wow. So at this time, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there flying kites. It's a great day for that. There's a goose over here. I do not like geese at all. Oh, here we have a situation. These idiotic, stupid birds right in the middle of a walking path. I don't want to spook them. I kind of want to go around. So I have to come all the way down here. Idiots. And their little babies. All right. So I think part of what I'll talk about during this series is what I've noticed about schools in the past, let's say 10 years or so, versus the experience I had when I was younger. I'm an older fellow. I sometimes look back at my time in elementary school rather fondly. I remember liking it. I never was the kid that had trouble in school. That seems to be commonplace nowadays. And back then, it was a kind of a rarity. If you had that child who had a lot of struggles, adjustment issues, problems with authority, leaving the presence of a mother, that sort of thing. It was kind of a rarity. It didn't seem to encapsulate the vibe of the school or the classroom. At least I don't really recall it that way. Sure, there's some, troubled kids here and there, but it just seems nowadays that's the standard. Like it's the expected standard for a classroom to have, upwards of 30 to 50% of the kids struggling with some sort of adverse childhood experience that has turned into a trauma or a stressor for the classroom. I deal with that a lot. I care for those kids quite a bit, and it's hard for me to connect sometimes because what I provide may not be what they need in their private world that they kind of exist within. Within the walls of the building, sure, I can provide help and assistance with that there, but it would be a little much of a reach, a long shot to think that I can really affect much by way of what goes on at home. Because there's a big wall between myself and those kids as far as their home life is concerned. Now, I can hear stories. I can be told certain things by the kids and the teachers about, what goes on, the struggles there. Within reason, of course, but I'm not really able to step inside a kid's world like that. That's something I had to learn quickly that I can't directly affect. I'm not the cure-all for anybody. The best I can do is be a really good guy, help out where I can, show a little bit of love along the way, and hope for the best. And if the job were that simple, I wouldn't have a reason to make a video. I wouldn't have a reason to think of expunging myself of these thoughts and viewpoints that might be difficult for me to bring up in other places. So that's kind of what this is. It's a chance for me to identify things that are on my mind and just kind of put them out there. I do have folks in my life who will listen to me and be a soundboard for me when I need to speak, but I tend to internalize a lot. I'm analytical. I'm very observant. A critical thinker in the sense that it's hard for me to ignore things when they're not right. I tend to ask questions. I tend to, in some cases, ruffle feathers, but that's just what you do when you care. If you care about the system, if you care about the kids, if you care about the process and the world in which they come from and live within, you're going to ask questions. My peer group, where I work, wide arrangement of ages, but many of them are older, retirees, doing this for a basic paycheck, no advancement, no future goals in mind. Some of them do, the younger ones at least. We're all kind of working under the same sort of focus, struggling with the same things essentially. And some of that I'll touch on in future episodes, but But I think for today, I'd like to start out this series with a really good story. It kind of leads into why I do this at all. Long story short, I never had kids of my own. I've been married over 22 years, and my wife and I met, started dating, became engaged, and got married within a very short period of time. I knew long ago she was the right one for me, and I still think that is the case. However, we have had a very, serious talk about our future, thanks to how my life has been in education. She still feels that she never wants kids, and she's at the point where she may not be able to because of age. She's 2 years younger than I am. I'm in my late 40s. But I made a decision a long time ago, though nevertheless late in my career, to completely uproot my life, to change what I was doing and get into education. I discovered I have a particular gift that I've never really used. And once I discovered that gift, it kind of changed things for me. And now, since I can't really have kids of my own, I compensate by working with, kids in schools that have special needs or particular struggles. It's very fulfilling for me. It makes me feel good. And I kind of wish there were more guys like that out there. The wind is really picking up right now. Again, I apologize if you're having trouble hearing me. It is quite literally in my face. And this is a pretty long path, so just gonna have to keep on moving. So, I want to talk a little bit about this year. I'm going to start with something good. This class I've been working with, I would say probably my favorite thus far. With over 10 years of working in education in one way or another, this group I'm with, wonderful kids. They're the sort of group whom I wish I could, spend extra time with, not in the school, but just out in the world. Get to know how they think and what kind of motivates them and how they see their own purpose for what they do. I think I might have to turn around because I'm having a hard time talking like this. So we've done some really cool things as a group together with the teacher. I follow them all throughout the school. They have 3 different teachers that they see. We transfer between blocks of time spent with the different courses. So I'm with them more than any other adult there in the building. So I know them pretty well. As the year went on, we got closer to spring break, and that was a time when I was feeling very just disinterested in having any sort of a vacation. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay in the school and kind of just either help the teachers out while they're away, clean rooms, get materials ready, set up stuff, whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, that didn't happen for me. A lot of the teachers were like, all right, see ya. I'm not going to do anything. And I understand why. They're under a lot of stress. It seems like everybody there wants to leave. I'm assuming they enjoy their jobs, but they talk frequently about leaving and getting out for a while. This kind of bothers me. So I'm not sure that's the best attitude to have in a school. Well, you've probably seen that before. Regardless of where you work, you've probably seen this before, where you'll have these people who, like, let's say they put out the daily email saying, "Oh, it's Happy Monday. All right. Tuesday's here. Great. Wednesday's hump day. Halfway through. Thursday, almost there. Friday, yay, here comes the weekend." They treat their time off like it's like a conjugal visit. Like if you're in jail or something, and you finally get to see a family member show up for a while. It's just treated that way. I don't do that. It's not my mode. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy working with the kids. I spend a lot of time with them. And there's a part of me that wishes that I could spend more. So it doesn't make much sense for me to be too excited about vacations because I don't want them. But others do. More power to them. But during that time off, during spring break, I wanted to do something special. So what I decided to do was write a letter to every student in that class that I work within. Now there's a lot of 5th graders this year. You can only work directly with somewhere in the neighborhood of 13, 15, 16, somewhere around there, kids. And I wanted to tell them exactly how they make me feel. I wanted to write something positive and something they could remember and something they could hold on to, for a long time. Because it's really easy to buy, snacks, chips, candy, pop, and give it to them. It's a temporary high for them. I get it. I was a kid too. But they're working towards something bigger and better, their future. And if I can write them a letter that's from the heart, that's going to last a lot longer. It's going to mean more. And I'm not the guy they go to for candy and trinkets and all that stuff. They know that. So what comes from me has got to be special to them. And that's what I did. I wrote them all letters. And on that Monday after spring break, I addressed the class. I said, "Hey," and actually I started with this. How many of you did not want to go to spring break this season? And I think there was 2 girls that raised their hand. One of them was kind of like, eh. And I said, I didn't want to go either. I enjoy my time here with you. This is what I like doing. And given the choice between having a week off to twiddle my thumbs and do nothing, or to spend the time with you, I'm choosing you. Now, whether those kids understood what that meant, I don't know. But it was still something I had to get off my mind. And I explained what I wanted to do during spring break to help out the teachers. It didn't happen. And I talked about impact. And this was really at the core of what I wanted to tell them, because what we do as educators, either teachers, assistants, related staff, what we tend to do is we focus a lot more on the impact that we have on the students. And that's important. We know that. But what we don't really recognize that much is the reciprocating impact of student towards staff, student towards teacher, or student towards a classified staff member like myself. And it's sometimes taboo. Sometimes taboo to admit, hey, I'm really fond of this student. We have a great relationship. We get along wonderfully. We work well together. I like them a lot. and all these positive things, we don't seem to focus much on that, like it doesn't matter. And that's where I say no. It matters a lot. It matters a lot to me. And I wanted them to know that. So I handed out those letters. Every one of them was tailor-made to them. They were handwritten, nothing from a computer, just a pen and a notebook. And it was interesting to see the reactions. Some of them were very, very happy. They were quick to thank me and to give me, just a little bit of acknowledgement for that. Some of them just kind of put the letter aside. And some of them, I think even today, I don't even think they've even looked at it. But that's okay. It's still there for them. In hopes that maybe someday they'll come across that and go, what is this? Oh, I remember this. So that was something that I did purely of my own accord. No, planning from anybody else. Just something I wanted to do to help my time off. But I want to fast forward a bit. I want to fast forward to this past week as we were winding down this school season. I want to talk about Monday. It was, if I remember right, it was Monday. It was sometime this past week. It was called Teacher Appreciation Week, or Day. I think it was Day. Well, I start my morning by working with kindergarten. I go to their room, run stations for them. And I'm sitting there and I notice these girls show up to the room, knock on the door. One of the little kids let them in. And they bring these little notebooks, like these little pocket-sized digest notebooks, to the kindergarten teacher. I thought, well, that's pretty nice. Maybe just something for them to write in and journalize for themselves. I don't know, but it's a nice little gesture. Well, the girls left, and I went back to just kind of working with the kids. And then about 5 minutes later, there's another knock at the door. Well, we let them in. So I got to pause here because the wind is just right in my face. At the door are two kids. One of them is a girl who I used to work with in my class, but because of kind of progressing, as you might say, she was elevated into another 5th grade room. And she happens to be one of the inspirations for these videos that I'm trying to create here. She walks over to me and she's got a big smile. She comes over to me and I'm sitting there with 4 kindergartners and we kind of pause for a second. And she hands me one of those little books. And it says, "Thank you for all that you do." In that flea market sort of fake cursive font I see a lot. Think like laugh, pray, love placards and posters you might see on a wall somewhere. And she goes, "Open it up." So I opened up the very first page, and she had written a paragraph to me explaining how I made her feel. Starts off by saying that I'm the best person in the world, which is certainly not true, but I'll go with it since it's from her. And she appreciates the time I spent with her and how she likes that I'm different from other people and that she hopes I had a good time with her too. And I did. I spent a lot of time with her, working with her in the classroom, talking with her on recess. She'd be a familiar little companion. As I watched the other kids, she'd come up and want to talk or spend time with me. Just wonderful, wonderful young girl in every way. And I sat there looking at this book, feeling very accomplished. As if that was the justification for everything I've done in my life. It felt very special. And as I looked through the book, it wasn't just her. There were other kids too. They all wrote very nice things to me, thanking me for a great year. It was wonderful. I really appreciated that. And the nice thing is I had no idea that was going to happen. So whatever they did, they kept it under wraps pretty well because I had no clue. So after that, I finished out my day, just feeling on top of the moon. Went home and wrote a nice email to everybody in the school, thanking those involved with that, explaining how it made me feel, explaining very clearly that these are, things that I find to be very sentimental. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by these stupid birds that just... all they do is they make noise, and they poop all over the place, and they get in the road. They're just stupid, idiotic animals. Look at them. They've got wings. They've got wings, and they don't fly away. Keep walking the path I'm clearly on. Finally. Look at this. Good gracious. There are other places I'll be going where there are geese everywhere too, and I'm sure I'm going to have the same experience. Back to the little notebooks and everything. The letter I wrote to everybody, the email I wrote, I should say. I tend to write in an eloquent way, sometimes getting poetic. I got a lot of responses for that. Just really supportive. The other folks who had gotten the books, they felt the same way as me. It's just very warm and kind and nice to get that sort of response from the kids. It meant a lot to me. But here's the funny thing. Something I brought up in my email is the idea that this is kind of par for the course. Kids will do these things at the end of the year to show their appreciation. Sometimes they do it of their own accord. Sometimes they kind of have to be coerced. And for teachers who've been doing this for years, they kind of know what to expect. They kind of smile and nod their head and say thank you. Maybe give a side hug here and there. And they kind of just stash it away somewhere. I get that, because the idea of diminishing returns, the more you do something, the less impactful it is. I get it. But for me, one thing I brought up was that I have a box at home that's filled with all these things I've been given. Pictures and toys and trinkets and hand-drawn, just like kitty drawings of animals and myself. My special ed folder is adorned with pictures of me, hand-drawn by a lot of kids who've gotten to know me over the years. I cherish all of that. That is something I am very, very weak to. I have a vulnerability to the good graces and the warm heart of a child. And it took me a long time to realize that part of my problem in my life, as it concerns boredom, happiness, feeling empty, and trying to be fulfilled in my life, to have purpose, to take the square peg that is my life and find the appropriate slot to stick it in. That's very hard for me to do. Well, it wouldn't be suburban Indiana if it didn't have trains all over the place. I'm going to take a seat here. So I think it's going to be blocking my road. So what might be commonplace to somebody else is very special to me, even if I've gone through it before. This time it's been very special. And I think in one of my future episodes I'll talk about just how special and how meaningful it is for me to receive things like that. Because it really is. What I will say though is that at some point I'm going to be talking about things that might be a little controversial, things that are a little difficult, stuff I've run across that I wish I had an answer for. I wish I could figure it out so I could have the means to fix the problems, or at least address them properly. Looks like the train is finished. Because that's the issue. When you get down to it, working in a school is both the most rewarding thing and probably the most frustrating thing you could do. You know, if you're a doctor, if you're watching this and you've gotten your medical license, you know, you spend so much time helping people who are sick, struggling, looking for answers, looking to you to solve their problems. That's a stress. Oh my gosh. You have somebody's life in your hands. I can only imagine how strenuous, how emotionally heavy that sort of work is. Same with nurses, emergency response teams, the police department, firefighters, even case managers. I mean, they do very emotionally draining work. But what ties all these jobs is you have to have that passion going into it. You have to possess that first. Because if you don't, you're vulnerable to be, you know, kind of not kicked out per se, but kicking yourself out of this world. I've seen it happen to others. You know, these people who are in every other walk of life, very good people, but they get into a school and the stress level becomes, 10, 11, and they can't take it and they leave. We lose good people because of that. And it's not just dealing with the kids, it's dealing with the systems. It's dealing with the procedures, the communication. How good is your management, your leadership? Is your principal visible? Are they the type that's going to go down the hallway, slapping high fives and, learning everybody's names? Or do they kind of exist in the shadows? They do what they can to achieve their personal goals for the district, for the state, get their numbers in, make their school look better than it might actually be. It's a grab bag out there. And for those of us who work in education, we want to be fortunate enough to work in a system that's, user-friendly. It's where if you are a teacher or a classified member of staff, you have, a seat at the table. Things are going on. You want to be able to have your input be valued because you have a voice. I've worked in schools where that doesn't exist. We have a few districts around my area, and I work for one of them. And I've worked for them for multiple times, both as a classroom assistant, eventually as a teacher, and then back again in special ed one-on-one, and then almost a special ed generalist. And every time I leave the district and come back, I have to go through orientation. And every time I do that, the vibe and the atmosphere kind of changes. It's a little different the way they hold orientation. The last one I did a year and a half ago or so, very odd. I hope to never have to do that again. But one thing that came up, and this comes up every single time, is that we get reviews, we get evaluated on that 30, 60, 90 day sort of clip. Where I work now, I never got that. It never made sense to me. If you hire me to do a job, and you're hiring me based upon my interview and my resume, the least you can do is pull me into your office and say, hey, how's it going? What are your thoughts so far? Do you feel like you're a part of the team? Do you feel like you're making headway? Do things fit for you? I didn't get anything like that. I had to make time with the principal to say, hey, could I have a sit down with you and talk about stuff? And they were like, all right. And even in that little meeting, which seemed very rushed, I mentioned, hey, is this going to be basically my 30, 60, 90? This was at about day 80 when I requested it. And they kind of laughed, which is kind of what I would expect. If you don't really care about that process, it's becoming a joke. And as I've talked to other classifieds in my department, we kind of agree. The experience just is not that great. And the funny thing is, when you talk about these things with regular folks, those who do not work in education, their first presumption, whenever you bring up anything even remotely negative about your time at a school, they first presume it's the kids. Oh, yeah, those kids. Oh, man, they're a handful nowadays, aren't they? They just, they can't do anything without a phone or a tablet. It's like, hold on. You might be touching on a different problem here, but it's not the one I'm having. Systems, people, procedures. Mainly those. Communication. Because that's what troubles me the most. We have wonderful kids. That's without a doubt. I'm fond of many, 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 many of them. It would be a stretch for me to look at them as being the problem, because I don't think they are. I think they are the current batch of experimental creatures who are going through the current process as it is. This public school, almost like science experiment. We're going to put them in these situations and see how they do, and if they don't act the way we want them to, we're going to change our system and convolute things to the point of just making teachers pull their hair out. I don't have to worry about that because I'm as bald as a cue ball right now. But for those who have a full head of hair, I'm sure they're getting ready to pull whatever's left of it straight on out. And unfortunately, that's the reality. The system is a bit strange. Not exactly broken or busted. I just think it needs an overhaul. And we can start a lot of different places with that. And that itself could be its own video, and maybe it should be. Talked about how this one's going to be a kind of a positive one. Start on some good things. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll keep that up. You know, I work with some very, very good teachers. Very capable. They know exactly what they're doing. And that's good. You can't have a good, healthy classroom if your teacher is all over the place. If they don't show up, if they don't know the content, if they don't care. And that's one of the big pet peeves of mine. As it concerns students, of course. You know, if a student doesn't care, that's very hard to work with. If a teacher doesn't seem to care, oh, that's bad too. At a whole other level. But I work right now in a very good group. The special ed group, which currently consists of just 2 members. They've been easy to work with, to talk to coincide with, you know, to collaborate with, to even, you know, share some concerns. I think we all kind of have the same view of how the system works and how it could be improved. A lot of times we're set adrift, not quite sure what we're supposed to be doing, but we try to make it work the best we can. I think that's kind of just the way it is. When you're in a school like that, it may be very, very difficult for everybody to be on the same page with things. Even expectations for testing at a state level. Everyone does it slightly different, in the very least, and some do it very differently. So if I have to proctor, which just means to help the test administrator with technical issues, with behavioral response, things like that, if I have to work with multiple teachers across different grades, and they all run their tests differently, expectations are different, that makes it hard on me, as it would any other classified who has to proctor as well. And it's hard to bring that up, because you have to have leadership who cares. You have to have management who cares. And I think at their heart they do. They struggle with a lot. They deal with things in their own line of work that's difficult. And I'll never take that away from them. I think at our core we have a decent enough team in the office. Some issues, and I'll be happy to get into that later on in a future video. But where I work, there's a challenge. I think we could be a lot better than what we are. But it takes someone to stand up and say, look, here are the problems, and if it risks me, as well as my job, to say these things, I will, because guess who I'm really working for here? It's not them, it's not the teachers, it's those kids. They are my number one priority. And I think as long as we remember that, we should be able to work together to make the best possible school that we could have. Because it's worth it. Those kids are worth it. I believe I mentioned the master's degree I'm trying to earn in school psychology. It's going to take me a while to get it. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through to get a degree in that. A lot of coursework to do, classes to take. I'm in a virtual study group every Wednesday night. It's kind of fun. I like it. Doesn't take very long. They do a nice job with that. I kind of wish it was there for the entirety of my courses, because some of them I'm just not connecting with. But this one's a pretty important one, so I understand why they focus on this one. It's about testing. Understanding what makes a test reliable and valid. The different types of psychometric tests you can run, which will be my bread and butter at some point. It's all very important, because you want to make sure that when you're working with kids, you are giving them your all, that you're really paying attention to what they need, and you accommodate them with the things that they need, the tools they require to be successful. It's always about them, as it should be. And the more you work in this world, the more you might develop your own kind of thick shell to things. For example, the more you work with children who, let's say, have emotional disturbances or difficulties or disabilities in some cases, the more you learn to let things kind of roll off your back. You don't take things personally. You get a really thick shell with that, and you're a good candidate to be working with those who have severe troubles. But those who are new, that's tough. Because when someone, calls you a name, when someone calls you, stupid or a dummy or, something like that, your first reaction might be to argue, but you shouldn't. You have to have that, proper response, behavioral response, the right intervention in that moment to quell the situation, to diffuse the problem, and to get back to normal. Because remember, you got to remember this, the kids don't always know what they're doing. Some of them have real issues with stability, and thinking before acting is tough. I work with a lot of kids who struggle with that. That's been a learning experience for me. For that reason, I have to develop that shell, that thick skin. Does it always work for me? No. There are times when I mess up. Sometimes I do get a little angry. But I can at least assure myself that through this entire process, I do things because I care. If I didn't care, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't feel for the kids. I wouldn't treat them as special individuals as they are. I would just look at them as numbers, as statistics for a spreadsheet. And I can't do that. Another thing that you kind of develop over time is the proper management of boundaries and limits. I don't know what that was. It made a big noise back there. Boundaries and limits. Very important. You want to make sure you're on the right side of doing things. You don't want to overstretch yourself. You don't want to overextend your capability, because that's the quickest way to burn out, is to do too much. I work with someone who I will call my frenemy. And I normally don't like those terms, but I think it fits here. She's a good person. She has a big heart. She really, really cares about these kids. I watch her, and she does everything she can possibly do to attend to them, to keep them happy, to give them what they need, and sometimes what they want. The problem is, she's not terribly stable in her own right. In her own life, she doesn't seem to be too confident about herself. She seems lost, sometimes confounding her situation with questions that just can't be answered. She's looking for solutions to problems that she might be creating herself. And I've known her since the beginning of my time at this particular school I work at. And I've taken time to get to know her a little more, to discuss things with her, to have good conversations, to help her see that she does not need to go 150%. We're not looking for a perfect school assistant. We're not looking for a perfect adult. We're looking for someone who simply cares enough to do the right things. And she has trouble with that because she thinks she needs to change everybody. She thinks she needs to fix everybody's problems. That's not how it works. And she's irritating to me in the sense that when she starts talking about something, she has a funny way of contradicting herself within the same breath. Like she'll say all the time, all I want to do is help the kids. All I want to do is make sure they're taken care of. I'm trying to do the best I can. And then I mentioned to her in response, well, do you know your limits? Do you know when you can pull back and not get so involved with what everyone is doing? She goes, well, I just work here. That doesn't make sense to me. If you just work here, then you're not overexerting yourself. You're not overstressing yourself. But that's exactly what she's doing. She carries with her to the lunchroom, because she and I watch the kids on lunch duty in the cafeteria every day. She brings with her 4 bags, just huge tote bags of stuff. There's her personal stuff. There's stuff for kids on recess, like bubbles and chalk, and just random things. She needs a donkey. That's what she needs. She needs a donkey or a burro to hang these tote bags from, so she can have her hands free. But even when she puts her bags down, she carries around this jug of tea and her water tumbler, and then she's got this pouch over her shoulder with certain personal items or whatever. It's like, well, what do you really need to get through the day? To me, that's a sign of overexertion. And if someone's that stressed out over their job and they're carrying around that much stuff, that's a sign you're doing too much. And I've tried to tell her this well over a year now. She's only gotten worse. She's only gotten more irritating and very difficult to talk to. Almost to the point now where if I see her coming, like if I know she's going to be hitting the break room sometime soon, I'm going to get out. She's going to start some discussion with me about something and ask me a very bizarre question. I'll try to answer it and she won't listen. Because she's already got this pre-planned script in her mind that she's going to run through when talking about something. Because it always ends in the same discussion. I just work here. I just work here. Yeah, and so do I. But my stress level is about 10%, and yours is 150. I laugh here because, again, she's my frenemy. I will chat with her within reason. She's got my number. We'll text from time to time if she has a question about something, and I'll be happy to answer it for her the best I can. She also she sometimes deals with excessive feelings of anxiety and probably a bit of depression. I won't get into the details with that, but they all lend themselves to this overall feeling of I'm just a big ball of frenetic, wild energy that I cannot rein in and fine tune to what I need to do. There's no chill to her at all. It's all boom. It's all big bangs and booms with her. And other people are noticing that too, and I've discussed how I feel about that, because we all like her. That's the thing. We think she's a really wonderful person. It's just we wish she would just tone it down. Take that dial, turn it down a bit, find the sweet spot, and run with that. It's hard to do, I get it. When you care, it's hard to do. When you love those kids, it's hard to do. But you got to do it. You got to do it. There's no way around it. So I'm kind of coming to the end of my trail here. Back to the parking area. So I hope for a first video this was okay. I know it's long form. It's a lot of staring off at nothing. I wish you could kind of experience this yourself. It's beautiful. My city is very nice. It's kind of a small metropolis, second biggest city in Indiana. It's my home. I've been here my entire life. I've now got my feet directly into midlife, going through my forms of crises that have not been too terribly awful, but I know they could get worse if I don't watch out. I think I've got a good number of years left of doing this sort of thing. I think I'll put off retirement for a very long time because I don't find that to be a good goal for me. I have different thoughts for myself, a different, you might say, a destiny for myself that I'd like to fulfill. And I'll say it again, maybe I'll share that in another video. But feel free to comment, write me, whatever you want to do. Happy to have a discussion with you. Tell me how you feel. If you work in schools, if you're a teacher, if you're maybe someone of management, leadership, how do you feel? Think about public schools. What do they mean to you? Do you think they're working? What could you change if you had the power to? What would you expect? What's some minor things that could change? It's an interesting discussion. And I know we're having it in the macro, but amongst professionals, amongst those in the business, in the industry, what are you talking about? What gets under your skin? What value do you have? What do you really love about what you do? Oh, by the way, here, this path that I'm taking, going back to the parking lot, this goes by a water treatment center. And I always know I'm getting closer when the smell changes. And that distinct, sewery sort of smell. I don't know what they're doing back here. It's a new construction I'm not familiar with. Yeah, when I came out here, the stink was very rank. It's one of those old words I used to use. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm part of the lost generation. The latchkey mom and dad are going to work now, so the kid has to stay home by themselves. That was me. No phones, no laptops, nothing like that. Just myself, my Atari, my Nintendo, TV, watching G.I. Joe. I miss those days. I'll tell you what, though, something else I've learned is if I were a kid nowadays, I would be, I don't think I'd be doing so well. Technology is great, but I don't want it running my life. And when you spend your time staring at kids, staring at computer screens, that's a punch in the gut. You got a teacher sitting right there, but they have to get their time in on the computer. Great. It's almost like going to a doctor's office and saying, hey, the doctor's in, but you need to start healing yourself for, let's go 15 minutes every day while you're here at the office, and then you can see the doctor. That's part of your plan. You have to heal yourself in the doctor's office before you get to even see the professional. That's more or less what schools are as it concerns the technology. All right, so we're at an hour now. Before my battery goes out, I will bid you a farewell, and I hope to see you for the next episode sometime soon. Take care. Bye-bye.